Welcome back to Big Ten. Today we have reached the semifinal stage in both the women's and men's Big Ten lacrosse tournaments. A couple of upsets on the women's side in the quarters. Rutgers advancing to the semis. They'll play number 2 overall seed Penn State, and the top seed Northwestern takes on Johns Hopkins. In the men's tournament bracket, it's all chalk. See on the bottom of your screen, it's Maryland, Penn State. That's the 2-3 matchup. Michigan advances with its win in the quarterfinals. The Wolverines set to take on the outright regular season champ and top seed, Johns Hopkins. Time for today's big interview, and is the head coach of the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays, Peter Milliman, joining us, also recently named the Big Ten Coach of the Year. So, Peter, first and foremost, congrats to you on the award, the team on an amazing run. As you kind of reflect back a little bit, what's been the golden thread for the team so far this season?
Appreciate that. Thank you. I would probably say more than anything is the leadership, senior leadership. Guys, just determination and grit to keep competing and working for each other. I think they've done a great job of that so far, and we're looking forward to keep fighting on.
How has that leadership kind of manifested itself on the field as you have so many contributors who are veterans who've been through this the last couple of years with your program?
I think more than anything, it comes through in the communication in between plays. A lot of times it's in between the quarters, the half times, it's the sidelines in between shifts, timeouts where the voices are coming from the guys and not from the staff all the time. There's been plenty of scenarios where some of the captains or even some of the other seniors will look at us and say, can I take this one? Is this, I got something to say. I want to chime in. And, we just step back and let them grab the huddle. And I think those are great places to be when you're coaching a team that has a lot of guys that, have a voice and want to continue to lead whenever they can.
Obviously, we've seen that leadership come through during this fantastic run late in the season through the Big Ten. Overall, you're 10-3. You're considered to be one of the best teams in the country. But among those 3 losses, all 3 are 1-goal games, and 2 actually came in overtime, all non-conference, all against really quality competition. How did those experiences kind of steel you guys and get you even more ready for Big Ten play?
I mean, each of them was a little bit different, but I think if you start with, our first game of the season was an overtime loss to Denver, and I thought we really learned a bit about ourselves there and how we can stay more composed down the stretch and not try and be too much of a bully. We got to stay composed throughout the game and be disciplined, so we're not in the penalty box and we're able to make quality decisions and execute when it's essential. So I think each of those has brought its own learning lessons to the team. But I think because that leadership, because of the commitment from the guys to really dive into that stuff, they wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a loss that motivated us because of frustration or because of because of the negative influence. We wanted to learn from it, wanted to dissect it, and then get better from it. And I think they presented those opportunities. I think we've done a decent job of that, but obviously we got a lot more ahead of us.
Your team has done a fantastic job of executing as well, and the talent is there. You have a first-team All-Big Ten selection at 3 different levels. So let's start on attack. Garrett Degnan is one of the top 10 nationally in points per game. What makes him so dangerous?
Consistency. He's a captain. He's a 2-time captain for us. I think he's got the longest goal scoring streak in the country. He just shows up to work every day. He really fights hard. He values the possessions and doesn't, he's not a high risk type of player. He really, kind of grinds it out. He gets his hands free whenever possible, but he's a tough competitor. He's a great shooter and an excellent leader.
On defense, Scott Smith, also a first-teamer. He has 50 ground balls. That's the most in the league for any non-face-off specialist. How does he help you, not just on the back end, but also in that transition from defense to the offensive attack?
Yeah, I mean, we probably could use Scott more than we do. You just got to be careful about overusing him at times, because I would put him anywhere we could benefit. We put him on face-off wings. He's taken draws before. He a lot of times he's covering the other team's top player, but he's a tough, athletic kid. He runs through ground balls full speed. He attacks the net when he gets over the midline. He's a real, heartbeat type guy. The guys, they respond to him. He's he's got a lot of emotion the way he plays, and he's just a fantastic teammate and leader for us.
And if your opposing team does get a good look, you have Chase Erlin inside the cage. He had at least a dozen saves in 4 of your 5 Big Ten wins. How do you describe not just his level of play, but what his consistency at that position has meant to your success?
I think a lot of it with Chase starts, with his voice and his, his leadership in communicating through the defense, throughout the sidelines, in between, like we said, in between quarters and timeouts and things like that. He's an everyday guy at practice. He's always bringing that energy, that competitive fire, and really marries himself with the defense and what they're trying to do. So I think he's got a great skill set when it comes to his fundamentals in the cage, things like that. But he's probably more than anything just communicating and settling the defense and maybe pumping him up when he needs to do that too. He's a great voice to have behind you.
Chase and the entire defense put up a phenomenal effort. A couple of Saturdays ago was a 7-5 win over Maryland to lock up the outright regular season title for the first time since your program joined the Big Ten, at least in an outright fashion. Peter, you pointed out to me before we began this interview, 127th all-time meeting between you and the Terps. What is that rivalry like, and what were those final seconds like for you to watch the clock count down, knowing what you guys had just accomplished?
That game really stands alone in your season. It's always going to be the biggest game for us. We have a lot of rivalries. This is a historic program that has a lot of strong competitions with different programs, but the Maryland one's always going to be unique in its own way. It's an exciting environment, passionate fan base on both sides. We packed the stadium, and just a really great experience for our guys. But to come out on top, I think was pretty special. The Big Ten implications factored in, but they don't outweigh the rivalry that we have with Maryland, and it's a great one. It's great experience for the guys to see a real playoff-like atmosphere, even with a game that was deciding between the first and second place in our conference. It had every bit of a Final Four-like atmosphere, so it was great.
Peter, when you and I first spoke, I believe it was a year or two ago, I learned you were a Rochester, New York native, spent some time there. We discussed the greatness of the Nick Tahoe garbage plate. I'm curious, what was on the victory night menu after that win over Maryland?
What did we have? I don't know. It's tacos, burritos, or something like that. It's something so they can grab and keep moving and doesn't get messy. But I can't remember what we had. I probably was right up to the meeting room with the staff and things like that. But they all probably went out to eat afterwards anyway. So it feels like they eat every 20 minutes. So I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, I have a growing teen boy. In fact, they do eat every 20 to 25 minutes. I see it in the bill. And I guarantee you, no matter what it was, that meal tasted a little extra special for your team. Obviously, as the league's top tourney seed, you earn a spot into the semifinals. You'll face Michigan. It's a team you beat 15-11 just about a month ago. What's the scouting report right now on the Wolverines?
They've been playing well. They're really tough in the middle of the field. They got a great face-off guy. Performing well in the middle, rides and clears. They seem to put the ball on the ground a lot. They have some really talented, skilled offensive players, high-level shooters, things like that. So, like I said, they've been playing well. They're a very well-coached team. We know we're going to have our hands full in every facet. So, just trying to get through the basics and make sure we're buttoned up before we get there on Thursday.
How are the guys doing with that extended wait? It's great to get a little bit of extra rest as the top seed, but it also means you have to wait a pretty long time between your final regular season game and the semifinals in the tournament.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like it can, change your tempo a little bit. So we tried to make last week as much of a game-like environment as we could. So it didn't feel like we had an off week, setting up some in-practice competitions and things like that. And, we had a similar scenario last season where we had a bye, and I think maybe we took our foot off the gas a little too much. So try not to do that this year and appropriately balance recovery and rest time with the attention to getting better. And so we'll see how it translates. I thought the guys stayed focused. I thought they did a good job continuing to push. Like I said, it's a very senior heavy group, and I think we got good leadership in there. So hoping to get it dialed the right way before game day.
Peter Milliman, head coach of the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays and the Big Ten Coach of the Year. Johns Hopkins opening up the Big Ten tournament semifinals, 6 Eastern, right here on the Big Ten Network against Michigan. Peter, we appreciate the time. Best of luck to you and the guys this week.
Thank you very much.
We are back to Feel the Draft after the break. Dave returns with an inside look at an amazing Wolverine-centric weekend as the defending champs steal the show in Detroit Rock City.